Hey folks, thanks for checking in here today. Just wanted to share some thoughts that have been kicking around in my head today. And this may be a bit of a ramble, but if you stick with me, I appreciate it. I would categorize these thoughts or these talks that I do as notes to self. There's nothing about these that I would beg you not to confuse these as me thinking I have any of this stuff figured out and I'm trying to impart wisdom to y'all. This is more just me talking to you about my stumbling around in my own bullshit and the thoughts that come up about it and things I'd like to talk about. So today I've been thinking about the different dynamics of marriage, relationship, and also in a way that those dynamics I think also relate to the relationship with ourselves. So I think anything I'm talking about in terms of relating to someone else, I think they apply to our own journey walking through this life in relationship with ourselves. So it's this idea of when thinking about, well, in my case I'll say marriage because I'm married, so I'll just use the example of my wife, but this applies to anybody and anything. Work relationships, parental relationships, relationships with your children, relationships with friends, anything. But it's this idea of embracing the ugly, not just putting up with it, because I think that is what we normally do. So for instance, there's something in your partner that you find challenging, some aspect of their personality that tends to consistently come up, and you start to recognize over your time with them that this is a part of their personality that is there, it exists. You can wish it away, you can figure out all of your own strategies to understand how to deal with it, which can be effective and definitely helpful, but often we find that these things, they just are there. And the reverse goes when we look at ourselves. When I think of my wife relating to me, the things in my life that are just a pain in the ass for her to deal with have been there from the beginning. They were there way before she came into the picture, and now she has to deal with them consistently because we're together all the time. And I think these things can get pretty rooted into our being. Some of them, I wonder, I'm not a social scientist, so I don't have evidence backing any of this from a social scientist perspective, but I wouldn't be surprised if some of this is true, that some of these parts of our personality, these trigger points or these hooks that are what can be challenging to others and to ourselves and how we walk through the world, some of those are there from the very beginning, and if they're not there from the very beginning, they develop very early on in our childhood. And I think some of them stay. They don't go away. We can work on them. We can develop strategies at how to deal with them. We can definitely grow with them. But I think examples of these key trigger points in our lives just healing and going away completely, I think they're rare. They may happen, but in my own experience and observing others, they're tenacious. They get rooted in there, and I think they stay for most of our life. And if we're talking about being in a relationship with somebody, if they do eventually end up going away, they're probably going to be an issue and something that the other person will have to deal with through most of the relationship. So let's just say they stay. So we can develop these strategies where we focus on everything that's beautiful about the person, which I'm not saying we shouldn't do that either, but we focus and we accentuate what's beautiful and easy and the things that we love. And then we put up with the things that are challenging because they're challenging. But I've been thinking about this idea of embracing those things just as much as we embrace the things we love and we find easy to deal with, because they're just as much of They are who we are as much as all the beautiful, sparkly, lovey-dovey things that everybody else loves and sees and admires in all of us. And we all have those traits, but we all have the dark shit too. And this idea of when we embrace another person and ourselves, that we're embracing the hard stuff just as much. We honor it just as much. We love it just as much, and we accept it just as much. I get that's not easy, especially in the heat of the moment. It's really challenging. But I'm sort of taking a step back and looking at an overall perspective and a concept, a conceptual idea of modeling our idea of what commitment to another person is. And like I said, this also reflects commitment to ourselves. And children too. I mean, this is just popping in my head now, but as a parent, our children can be challenging to us. But we love them with they're all part of our being, and to serve them best, we need to embrace every aspect of their being. So this just comes back to this idea of loving, embracing, and marrying the ugly, the dark, the hard, the bullshit. To invite that into our life just as much, because whether we invite it or not, it's going to be there. I guess it's up to us how much we struggle with it, or to what level we accept it. So today, that's what I've been thinking about. I want to, in my own life, take some steps towards being in less conflict with the things I find challenging about other people. And as I say that, I realize that applies to my whole life, not just my wife. I mean, I have issues with people in my life where I've ended friendships or ignored them enough that they just sort of die away on the vine because I was too challenged by aspects of their personality that, in hindsight, weren't a big enough reason to cease having a relationship with someone who was very much worth maintaining a relationship, someone who brought tremendous value to my life. And I've had tendencies in the past to walk away from that just because things just were a little uncomfortable. And as I'm looking at the last phase of my life, I'm 51, and so I've got years, knock on wood, I got plenty of years left, but things are starting to move, and over the horizon I can see that, oh yeah, life ends now, and that's a realistic notion for me, 30, 40 years, So this last phase, or this phase, I want to embrace the things in people that I find challenging in hopes of nurturing more positive, fruitful, and deeper relationships that I can maintain. Because saying goodbye is really too easy for me. It's way too easy to say goodbye, and I would like to pull that back a little bit and have a little more tenacity in being willing to participate in maintaining relationships in my life. And I absolutely am committed that to my wife, because I can say that I'm blessed and I'm lucky that I met someone who I truly love and truly like, and life would just suck not having her in it. So I'm going to do everything I can to try to maintain that. So I think if I keep talking, it's just going to be a redundant, repetitive ramble. This may have been anyways, but I enjoyed getting it out there. And if it inspires thoughts or like-minded thoughts or continuing thoughts in issues like this in other people's lives, that'd be great. I'd love to hear comments on it and understand what's going on in other people's minds about things like this too. So there you go. That's my ramble and thought for the day. Notes to self. If any of those notes apply to you, that would be great too. Okay, everybody. Peace, love. Be happy. Bye-bye.